So when testing the hit cone, you can just use some basic trigonometry to figure out what the angle is, and it works out to 20 degrees for both cases, with and without the implant. Now 20 is the number listed as the hit cone, but keep in mind that's the angle for one side, so from the center to one side, so your total arc is 40 degrees from one side to the other. But what's kind of interesting to me is that, as you can see here, the angle is the same since in both cases, when I tested it, the angle remained 20 degrees. That essentially just means that with the implant, it extends those lines out. It does not stretch the cone, it simply extends it outward. So the more range you have, that means the more potential spread, or the more maximum distance apart two enemies can be. But since the angles are the same, technically, if this were a particle damage weapon, where each little particle shot deals a certain amount of damage, the spread is the same, which means the optimal range should be the same, but it's not. The optimal range goes from like 13 to 20, which is, again, 50% increase, like the range, that's what the implant does. Which means that, these weapons, probably to nobody's surprise, the game doesn't account for individual particles, so it is essentially just a wave of damage, and then there is a damage fall off over distance, but it has nothing to do with the number of particles or the number of pellets that would technically be hitting an enemy. This also means that it is not determinate by the enemy's size. So a small target's going to take just as much damage as a large target because, again, it is a wave. And this is sort of interesting information. I always kind of figured that a smaller target would take less damage, which it should if there's actual, pellet particles involved. But they're not. Is this the only weapon that does that? Probably not. I would assume that all shotgun-type weapons are calculated this way, and that's just the way that it works. Do I know that for sure? No. I'd have to test it. But I just thought it was interesting, in case anybody kind of thought the same thing as me. But yeah, in terms of the range, here are the two charts. Now, I have it on percentage of total damage, so instead of just giving you values, I'm telling you, okay, you start off at max damage, and then to a point, it goes down. Both graphs go down to roughly 50%. The graph without an implant, you can see that from 13 to 32 meters, which is roughly 20 meter difference, you go down roughly 50%. So this is like about 2.5% damage loss per meter outside of optimal range, which is interesting. For the chart with the implant, you can see that you go from 20 to 48, and you still lose about 50% damage over that entire thing. So you lose less than 2% per meter outside of optimal range with the implant. So generally speaking, if you have your optimal range in mind, if you know what your optimal range is with the implant, you can do some, on-the-fly math to figure out whether or not you should be getting closer or if you can afford to stay further away when it comes to the damage loss that you get per meter outside of optimal range. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me. I just wanted to do a couple tests to kind of figure out exactly how this worked and learn some things which I would have to say that I did. So that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.